What? Insurance fraud? No.
Dual relationships.
Dual relationships.
No.
Out of scope.
DUI.
No. All right. So let me tell you. Not completing your CEUs. People sign on the dotted line that they have the right number of CEUs, and when they're being audited, and this is not just in California, this is nationwide. 31% of the people, when they audit them, fail the audit. And what happens is they sign on the line on perjury, which now makes 2 offenses. Not only don't you have your CEUs, but now you lied about not having your CEUs, right? Or they miscount. Or what they do is they say, oh, I was going to take that training next week. Or they say, I thought I only needed 18 units. A year, right? So the next ethical violation that that comes right under CEUs is dual relationship. We don't understand what dual relationships are. Now, in some small communities, you may be in the same church with a particular member. You may work out at the gym, or your kids may go to the same school. A dual relationship has to have a concern that you are using your power over that client inappropriately. So there's a therapist in my community that was coming to me for supervision, and we were talking about something, and he said, yeah, I have so-and-so, they're working on my bathroom.
What?
I'm like, that's what I said. Did I hear you right? Oh yeah, well we have a contract, so it's not a dual relationship. I said, you need to call that client and either stop seeing them, or for 2 years, or you need to break that contract. But I'm paying them. Okay, it's still a dual relationship. Well, I'm an attorney, and we do that all the time. I said, maybe you can do that as an attorney, but therapists have a higher standard of practice, and you can't do it. And, by the way, if you don't do one or the other, I'm not going to see you anymore, because I'm not going to sign off on your stuff, because that puts me in jeopardy. Really? I worked really hard. Why wouldn't you sign off on my paperwork? Because you have a gigantic ethical problem right in front of you. Right? The other thing that we do is we tell clients we can do things that we don't know how to do. I see this with EMDR therapists, and I'm an EMDR therapist. But I see what happens is they go to EMDR, they do the first weekend, maybe they do the second weekend, and then they say they're certified. Or they go to EFT training and they say they're certified. Now, they know the techniques, I get that, but they're not certified. If someone went to that organization and said, are they certified? They wouldn't be. So we're basically holding ourselves out to be something that we're not. And that's an ethical violation. But what we think is, well, I have one more thing to put on my training. One more thing to list. So then list it as trained in. Right? Not that I'm certified, unless you are certified. Just like when you're graduating and you're like, you're not a therapist yet, you're not an associate yet, until you get your number. Right? So don't go make a business card saying you're an associate if you're not an associate yet. So the other main issues that we see for licensing boards are inadequate or no notes. That's one of the fastest ways to lose your license, right? And so if you're in private practice, figure out what's a good pace for you. Notes should be in your system 48 hours or less. I love our EMR system because if I get stuck and it's a late client, I can pull out my cell phone and dictate my notes right into my system. And I do it before I even get home. I think I've had one note in the last 4 years that I wrote after the date that I saw the client. that if your case gets pulled and your note is 3 months down the line, you're in trouble. Right? We are required to have notes. I know some therapists who write notes by hand still, and they write them so sloppy in case they get called to court. I'm not gonna, if I get called to court, I'm not going, and they're not gonna be able to read my notes anyway. You want to be held in contempt? I do not. They had terrible food in there. Do you have a court policy in your information packet? What happens if you get subpoenaed? Do you have your fees in there? If you don't, go to Nicole because she's got something good. And I'll have to tell you, she's saved my agency a lot of money over the years because we were prepared. And therapists will, go over the informed consent that first session, you give them a copy, blah, 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 whole thing. And then they'll come back and say, well, I want you to come testify that I'm the better parent.
Oh.
And you're like, I can't testify. And if I do come and I do give the information, it's going to cost you $1,500. What? You're my therapist. Yeah, but here's your signature right under the paragraph that says, if you call me to court, this is what I need to have happen. You need to give me a cashier's check before I come. Not a regular check, because you'll cancel that check. Another thing is that we don't know when we are abandoning clients and when we have a legal right no longer to see them. So I have a therapist friend who saw a client for 9 sessions, did not get paid for any of those sessions because the client had stopped paying for therapy services. And so the therapist felt that she was trying to transition, but she couldn't transition, and so she felt well, she just had to continue to see the client. If your clients are not paying you, you don't have to see them. You can give them 3 referrals in your area, and even if you happen to have a low cost or no cost one, I would for sure get that one, but you're not required to see them. But this woman said, I can't abandon my client. Are you abandoning the client, or maybe a client is abandoning you? Don't know about that one, right? So know your regulations. How do you know your regulations? Well, you read what your state license requirements are. It's on every state licensing board. There's a whole list. In California, we get a whole list every year, and they're so kind because on the very first page, or the second page, they list all the changes for the year. And so once you learn them the first time, all you need to do at that point is go down and see what they've changed. Belong to an association and follow their ethical guidelines. Hook into people who are following their ethical guidelines, so if you accidentally stray, they'll go, wait a minute. You're treading on some territory here that maybe you shouldn't do. Right? And trust those people enough to give you that feedback. And you give the feedback to them. You also must keep your informed consent updated, because you can't change that informed consent and say, well, my fees are this and you're not paying them, if it doesn't say that in your informed consent. So I put on my calendar every year, update forms, and make sure that, and we change our intake forms for other things, like we've included screen time now on our intake form, because that's something that we've been noticing that's causing depression and anxiety, is the amount of screen time that some people have. So it gives you an opportunity to change the forms up a bit as you learn about things in your community that will be specific to them. But be very clear. You cannot write your informed consent like you're writing a law journal. It has to be in clear, simple English. Because if they go to court and they say, well, I didn't understand this, and it's written in all this legalese, the court's going to go, yeah, only attorneys can understand that. Right? And we're not trying to trick our clients. That's not what we're trying to do. So we need to stay informed of HIPAA. Now, since 9/11, the HIPAA registration's kind of been on hold, but I hear that they're starting to do some changes to that. And I hear that they're also now auditing a few people. And so if you don't have your HIPAA documents in order, you could be in trouble.